people, and unfortunately, most boxing fans suffer from the strange phenomenon that you're only as good as your last fight. In this case, are they right? Well, let's take a look. Guys, there's boxing, and then there's heavyweight boxing. And with Deontay Wilder's athleticism and power, he is in each and every fight. Yes, Tyson Fury wiped up the floor with him in their second matchup. But does that mean it's going to be a repeat performance in fight number 3? Well, it all depends on a couple of variables. The first variable being Deontay Wilder. Now, going into the first and second fights, the Bronze Bomber was brimming with confidence. Brimming, almost overflowing at times. After getting a beat down and getting embarrassed in front of his fans, is he going to have that same confidence and swagger going into the third fight? Well, he had better. Because if he doesn't, he might as well not even show up. He's already lost. He has to have that ego and swagger as he enters the ring with just a mask. And I guarantee you he's not going to be wearing a costume this time. He's just going to be donning the mask as he did before any of this nonsense took place. That's variable number 1. But guys, look, this fight, and once again, even though most fans think that this is a foregone conclusion and there's not much interest in this third fight, guys, I'm here to tell you that you're wrong. This is the heavyweight division. No matter how proficient you are at boxing, no matter how good your upper body and head movement, as we've seen in great events past, no one is immune to getting caught and getting buzzed and getting knocked out. This is the heavyweight division. And I'm going to list 2 different strategies, 2 things that Deontay Wilder, all he has to do, Bronze Bomber fans, to make this matchup instantly more competitive. He just has to make 2 adjustments in his strategy. If he works on these 2 things, I promise you, we're going to see a completely different fight in the trilogy match. Not saying he's going to win, but it's going to be ultimately a lot more competitive. First thing he has to do, guys, is he has to get off first. The worst thing that could have happened to him going into the second fight was having all of the success that he had against Luis Ortiz. Now, once again, they're 2 totally different styles. The strategy that he used in the second fight with Tyson Fury was the absolute worst thing he could have done for himself. But it worked like a charm against Luis Ortiz. But Luis Ortiz, once again, you're facing a prolific counterpuncher. So you don't dare get off first, because you know if you let your hands go, something's going to be coming right back at you. And the real King Kong, he can crack. He's a sharp, razor-sharp southpaw counterpuncher. So he had a very smart strategy going into that fight. Be patient. Just use a sporadic jab, feint a lot, use your footwork to keep him off balance, and wait for the right opening, and bam, end it with 1 shot. Work like a charm. But when you're dealing with a guy like Tyson Fury, who is consistently feinting both with his feet and his upper body, you don't dare wait on him, because you're never going to be able to tell when he's going to get off. So he's constantly waiting on a guy like Tyson Fury, and his rhythm and timing is completely thrown off by all of the disjunct movement that Tyson Fury does. Guys, he should have watched the Klitschko fight. Klitschko couldn't time him and counter him effectively either, and he was forced to get out of the pocket and take the lead, something he's not good at. Well, Deontay Wilder is most proficient when he's a predator. He's a predator in the ring. So all he has to do is remember this. Take the lead. Get off first. You have to get off first. If you fight someone with the herky-jerky upper body movement of a guy like Tyson Fury, because he uses that to disrupt the timing and rhythm of his counterpunching opponents. So that's item number one. Item number two, Deontay Wilder absolutely has to win the jab contest. He has to get off first, and he has to fight behind and establish an intelligent jab. And what I mean by that, guys, he has to mix up the torque and use sporadic intervals, using feints, using touch jabs, and using hard sticking jabs to the body, chest, and head. And he has to win the jab contest. He has to get off first and jab and work the jab more than Tyson Fury. Not only is it your first line of defense, but it sets the table for your entire arsenal of punches. And after he does that, he's got to effectively cut off the ring and close the distance. When he got really emotional in their first meeting, he justifiably and correctly went right after Tyson Fury, but he went after him just swinging for the fences, throwing bombs. And Tyson Fury, when someone does that, he'll stick the jab in your face and he'll quickly pivot around you, forcing a heavyweight. Because, guys, let's look at Deontay Wilder, right? This is a guy who swings for the fences and is arguably the hardest puncher in the history of boxing. Well, it depends on having both feet planted. So Tyson Fury very intelligently would pivot around him, forcing Deontay Wilder to have to reset and get both feet planted to land his bombs. Well, if he works on cutting off the ring and closing the distance effectively, he can corner Tyson Fury and then start to let his hands go in combination. Now, it's very important, though, that when he uses his jabs, he throws in feints, uses touch jabs, uses hard sticking jabs, because what the feints will do, they will cause Tyson Fury to commit. And when he turns and moves out of position, well, he can see that happening and he can land that big right hand. Guys, so if Deontay Wilder just takes care of those two things, this matchup immediately becomes more competitive and Deontay is in the fight. Am I wrong? No. And although most fans would disagree with me, well, industry insiders, especially bookmakers, odds makers, and handicappers, they would disagree with the fans. Because if you look at the opening betting lines, Tyson Fury is only listed as a minus 240, which is a 2.5 to 1 betting favorite. Deontay Wilder is listed as a 2 to 1, a very live 2 to 1 betting underdog. Now, let me just put that in perspective, right? And most fans would say, no way, how are they that close? Guys, once again, Deontay Wilder, with his athleticism and power, he is in every single fight. As long as he comes into the ring in a good frame of mind and is brimming with confidence once again, he is in this fight if he just makes those two adjustments. Now, to put the odds in perspective, let's look at a heavyweight fight that's happening on August 22nd. Now, would you say that Dillian Whyte versus Alexander Povetkin is a competitive fight? I know a lot of fans are actually picking the upset in this one, but would the odds makers agree with you? In comparison, look how much wider the odds are for Dillian Whyte versus Alexander Povetkin. Dillian Whyte is going into this contest, as of now, a 4 to 1 betting favorite at a minus 400. Alexander Povetkin is sitting at a very live but underrated plus 300. He's a 3 to 1 betting underdog. And I'm sure most fans would disagree with that, saying, well, how can that be? How can the odds be that wide? To me, this is a competitive fight. Guys, don't let what happened last time fool you. This is the heavyweight division. no one is immune to getting knocked out, as Deontay Wilder fans learned in a very hard way. So guys, Deontay Wilder fans, cheer up, be optimistic, because December 19th, your man, if he takes care of these things, could exact his revenge.